Black man helps a stranger through a brutal snowy night. The next morning, his life changes forever. On a bitterly cold winter night in a small, quiet town, Marcus hurried through the thickening snow. The wind howled, and snowflakes stung his face as they blew past him in gusts. It was late, and he had just finished his shift at a nearby factory, a job that kept him working long hours. The streets were nearly empty, with only the sound of his footsteps crunching through the snow breaking the silence. Marcus was used to the harsh winters of his town, but tonight felt especially cold. The wind seemed to cut straight through his jacket, and the snow had piled up high on the sides of the road, making it difficult to walk. He kept his head down, his hands stuffed in his pockets to protect them from the biting cold, just trying to get home. He couldn't wait to step inside the warmth of his house, where his wife and kids were waiting. As he walked, he noticed a shadow in the distance. At first, he thought it might be a stray animal or perhaps a lost piece of debris blown by the wind. But as he got closer, he realized it was a person, a woman. She was stumbling, her coat not enough to shield her from the storm, her steps unsure as she tried to push through the snow. "Hey, are you okay?" Marcus called out, his voice cutting through the wind. The woman looked up at him, her face pale and red from the cold. Her eyes were wide with confusion and fear. I'm lost," she said, her voice shaky. "I don't know where I am, and I can't find my car." Marcus glanced around, noticing how the blizzard had already covered the streets. There was no way she would make it anywhere in these conditions, especially without proper clothing or any way of contacting help. The nearest shelter was a few blocks away, and it was unlikely she would make it there on her own. Without thinking, Marcus stepped forward, ignoring the cold that bit into his skin. "You can't stay out here like this," he said, offering her his arm. "Come with me, I'll help you." The woman hesitated for a moment, then nodded. She looked exhausted, her body trembling from the cold, and she seemed grateful for the assistance. Together, they slowly made their way through the storm, Marcus supporting her as they struggled against the wind and snow. As they walked, Marcus tried to keep the conversation light, asking her questions to help distract her from the freezing cold. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emily," she replied, her voice still faint from the cold. "I'm from out of town. I was on my way to visit some family, but then my car broke down. I was trying to find a place to call for help when the storm hit. I didn't expect it to get this bad so fast." Marcus nodded sympathetically. He could tell by the way she spoke that she was overwhelmed by the situation. The storm was unlike anything he had seen in years. He had lived in the area his entire life and had learned to navigate its winters, but even he knew that tonight was something different. The wind was vicious, the snow thick and unrelenting. "You're lucky I was walking this way," Marcus said, trying to offer some comfort. "Not many people would be out in this kind of weather at this hour, but don't worry, we're almost there." They continued walking through the snow, Marcus's boots sinking with each step. He could feel the cold creeping through his own jacket, but he didn't complain. Instead, he focused on helping Emily, making sure she stayed steady on her feet. The road was slippery, and the storm was making everything harder, but Marcus didn't want to leave her alone out there. They finally reached a small diner at the edge of town. The lights were off, but the door was cracked open, and Marcus could see the warmth inside. The diner wasn't much, but it was a place to rest, and that was exactly what Emily needed. He pushed open the door, and they stepped inside, the warmth hitting them like a wave. "Thank you," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper as she collapsed onto a booth, shivering uncontrollably. Marcus sat across from her, taking off his own coat. "Don't mention it," he said with a smile, though he was still a little worried. "We'll wait here until the storm dies down." Emily gave him a tired smile, her eyes closing as she tried to warm up. The diner was quiet, with only the faint hum of a heater in the background. Marcus sat back in his seat, watching Emily as she slowly began to relax. He could tell she was exhausted, and he felt a small sense of pride for helping her. It wasn't often that Marcus found himself in a position to do something good for someone else. His life was always filled with work and responsibilities, but tonight, things felt different. "So what brings you to town?" Marcus asked, wanting to keep the conversation going to keep her mind off the cold. Emily looked up at him, her expression softening. "I was just visiting my family," she said. "It's been a long time since I've seen them, but I didn't expect the weather to be so bad. I thought I'd be able to make it there and back before the storm hit. I guess I didn't check the weather report carefully enough." Marcus smiled kindly, understanding all too well how plans could fall apart. He had seen his own share of setbacks in life, unexpected troubles, things that couldn't be avoided. But tonight, in this small moment, he felt like he had done something that really mattered. They sat in the diner for a while longer, both of them listening to the wind howl outside as the storm continued to rage. Marcus had grown up in this small town, and he had seen a lot of tough times, but he had always believed in helping others when he could. It was just the way he was raised. His parents had taught him that no matter what, you should always try to do what's right. Eventually, Emily began to calm down, her shivers subsiding as she warmed up. Marcus, too, felt his body start to relax. The night had turned into something unexpected, but he didn't mind. He was glad to have been there for someone who needed help, especially in such a harsh situation. As the hours passed, the storm began to lose its intensity. The snow still fell in heavy sheets, but the wind had calmed and the worst of the blizzard seemed to have passed. Emily looked up at Marcus, her face now flushed with warmth. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. "You don't need to," Marcus replied, shaking his head. "Just paying it forward would be enough." They sat together in that warm, quiet diner, both of them reflecting on the storm that had brought them together. Neither of them knew it yet, but their lives were about to change in ways they could never have imagined. The snowstorm continued to rage outside, but inside the small diner, Marcus and Emily found a moment of peace. The warm air of the diner wrapped around them like a comforting blanket, and the smell of stale coffee mixed with the faint scent of greasy diner food. It wasn't much, but it was a place of refuge from the freezing storm. Marcus sat across from Emily, watching as she slowly began to thaw from the chill of the night. Her face, once pale and flushed from the cold, was now regaining its natural color. She rubbed her hands together and looked around the small diner, her eyes soft with gratitude. "I can't believe how bad the storm got," Emily said, breaking the silence. "I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong. I'm lucky you found me out there." Marcus gave a slight smile, shaking his head. "It wasn't luck. I've been around here long enough to know these storms. They can sneak up on you fast, but you're right, it got worse than I expected, too." He leaned back in his seat, taking a moment to glance out the window. The storm still roared, but the visibility was improving. The wind had lessened, and the snow seemed to fall in a softer, gentler pattern. It looked like the worst was finally over. Marcus felt a small sense of relief. He had been worried about what might happen if they hadn't found shelter. Emily shifted in her seat, her legs stretched out under the table, her boots still wet from the snow. "Do you think the storm will stop soon?" she asked. "I need to figure out what to do next. I can't just stay here forever." Marcus looked out the window again. The night was still deep, and the roads were covered in a thick blanket of snow, but he knew it would be safe to leave soon enough. He wasn't sure what Emily's plans were, but he felt a responsibility to help her, if only to make sure she got to where she needed to go. "I think it'll clear up by morning," he said, his voice calm. "But the roads are going to be rough for a while. It's a good idea to stay put for now. You don't want to get stuck out there again." Emily nodded, her eyes distant as if she were lost in thought. Marcus wondered what she was thinking, but he didn't press her. It wasn't his place to ask about her personal life, especially not after such a short encounter. Still, he couldn't help but feel a sense of connection to her. He had helped her out of the storm, but it felt like there was more to the situation than just a chance meeting. Something about her presence made him feel like he had done something truly meaningful. "I don't know how to repay you," Emily said after a pause. "I really appreciate what you did for me tonight. I'm just glad I found someone kind enough to help." Marcus smiled again, his eyes warm. "There's no need for repayment. You don't owe me anything. It was just the right thing to do. People need to help each other, especially in times like these." Emily looked down at her hands, fidgeting with the sleeve of her coat. "I wish I could be that person more often. I've had a lot of struggles in my life, and it's hard to find good people sometimes. But tonight, I found someone who just did the right thing without expecting anything in return." Her voice had softened, and Marcus could tell that she was genuinely moved by the kindness she had received. He knew that people often overlooked the importance of small, kind gestures, but they had the power to make a lasting impact. Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Everyone's going through something, Emily. You never know what someone's dealing with. Sometimes, a simple act of kindness can make all the difference." The conversation paused for a moment as they both sat in silence, listening to the storm outside. Emily's fingers tapped nervously on the table, but she looked calmer now. She seemed to have relaxed in Marcus's company, and that gave him a sense of pride. It wasn't easy for her to trust a stranger, especially in such an unfamiliar place, yet she had. That spoke volumes about her character. After a while, Marcus stood up and stretched his legs. "I'm going to grab a coffee. You want something?" Emily smiled faintly. "Just water, please. I've had enough coffee tonight to keep me awake for a week." Marcus chuckled and walked over to the counter. The diner's old coffee machine sputtered as it brewed a fresh pot, and the clink of mugs being set down on the counter filled the air. The diner had a charm to it, despite its outdated decor and small, worn tables. It had served as a sanctuary for locals and travelers alike, and tonight it was the place where Marcus and Emily found themselves, connected by an unexpected event. He returned with 2 glasses of water and set one in front of Emily before taking his seat again. "So you said you were visiting family. How far away are they?" Emily hesitated for a moment, as if weighing whether or not to share more. She finally looked up at Marcus, her eyes slightly more open. "They live a few hours away. I was planning to spend the weekend with them. But now I'm not sure how I'll get there. My car is still stuck somewhere out there in the snow." Marcus nodded, understanding her frustration. He could see how this situation had been unsettling for her, and it made him think about how lucky he was to have the stability he did. Emily seemed so independent, and yet in this moment she was vulnerable, just like anyone else caught in a storm. "I can help you get your car in the morning," he said. "I know a few people in town who might be able to lend a hand with getting your car out of the snow." "It'll be rough, but we can figure it out." Emily looked relieved, and she gave him a grateful smile. "You'd really do that?" "Of course," Marcus said, leaning back in his seat. "I've been through enough tough situations to know how important it is to have someone offer help. It's the least I can do." The storm outside had slowed to a gentle snowfall, and the moon began to peek through the clouds, casting a soft glow over the town. The night was still young, but Emily seemed to be at peace, her body unwinding from the tension it had carried earlier. She sighed contentedly and took a sip of her water. "I'm glad I met you tonight," she said softly. "Thank you for everything." Marcus smiled again, a genuine warmth in his expression. "It's nothing, just a good turn in the right moment." They sat in quiet companionship, the storm now a distant memory, as the warmth of the diner and the promise of a safer tomorrow settled around them. Neither of them knew what would come next, but for that moment they were just 2 strangers, brought together by fate, finding solace in each other's company. The night stretched on, but neither of them was in a hurry to leave. The world outside was cold, but inside they had found warmth, both from the diner and from the kindness they had shared. And as the storm outside continued to fall softly, Marcus and Emily both realized that sometimes the most unexpected encounters could change a person's life forever. The storm outside had slowed to a quiet flurry by the time Marcus and Emily finished their water and sat in. Comfortable silence. The diner, small and cozy, seemed to hold them in its quiet embrace, offering warmth and respite from the world outside. The lights hummed softly above, and the sound of the occasional gust of wind outside was the only thing that reminded them of the chaos the storm had caused. It was getting late, but neither of them was eager to leave the shelter of the diner. Marcus glanced at the clock on the wall and realized that a few hours had passed since they had first entered. The snow had been relentless when they arrived, but now it seemed like the worst of it was over. The roads would still be dangerous, but at least they weren't buried under a blizzard anymore. "So, what's your plan tomorrow?" Marcus asked, breaking the quiet. "When the roads are clear enough, do you think you'll head out to your family?" Emily had been staring out the window, watching the snow fall gently in the streetlights. She turned her attention to Marcus, offering a small smile. "I'm not sure," she said. "My car is still stuck out there somewhere. I really don't know how to get it out of the snow by myself, but I guess I'll have to figure something out. Maybe I'll just call a tow truck or something." Marcus thought for a moment. He could tell Emily was frustrated, but she was trying to keep it together. He'd seen that look before, the determination to handle things on her own, even when it seemed impossible. He admired that about her, but at the same time, he knew she wasn't in a position to deal with the situation by herself. The storm had left its mark on the town, and no one could do everything alone, especially when the weather had been so unpredictable. "I can help you," Marcus offered, leaning forward slightly. I know the area well enough to get us to your car in the morning, and I've got some connections around here. We'll get it sorted out. Emily hesitated, looking at him with a mixture of gratitude and uncertainty. I don't want to trouble you. You've already done so much for me tonight, and I don't want to keep asking for favors. Marcus shook his head, a reassuring smile on his face. It's not a trouble, really. I'd be happy to help, and besides, I'm not in a rush to go anywhere tonight. The roads are still a mess, and it wouldn't hurt to wait a little longer until things settle down. I'm not going anywhere, and I don't mind offering a hand. Emily looked relieved and a little bit surprised. She had been on her own for a while now, and people hadn't always been kind when it came to offering help. Dee learned to rely on herself, but in this moment she felt an unexpected warmth from Marcus's kindness. It was more than just offering help. It was the genuine way he said it, like he truly wanted to make sure she was okay. Thank you, Emily said quietly, her voice soft. I really appreciate it. You didn't have to, but I'm glad you're here. It's been a long time since someone cared enough to help me out like this. Marcus looked down for a moment, his expression thoughtful. I know what it's like to feel like you're alone, having to deal with everything on your own. It's tough. But sometimes a little kindness can make all the difference. The words hung in the air for a moment as Emily took them in. She knew what Marcus meant. She had been through enough hard times to understand. But hearing him say it so simply, with such sincerity, made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she had thought. There were still good people in the world, and they didn't always expect something in return. The two of them sat there for a while longer, just talking. Emily told Marcus a little more about her life, how she had grown up in a small town and had moved to the city for work, only to find herself far away from family and friends when things started to get tough. She didn't go into too much detail, but there was a sadness in her voice when she spoke of the distance between her and the people she loved. It was clear that she missed the comfort of home, even if she didn't always admit it. Marcus, in turn, shared bits and pieces of his own life. He talked about growing up in the town, how he had worked different jobs before landing at the factory. He spoke with pride about his family, his wife and kids, and how hard he worked to provide for them. He didn't have much, but he made sure they had everything they needed. It wasn't always easy, but he had learned to appreciate the small moments, the quiet evenings with his family, the satisfaction of a job well done, and the simple joy of knowing he was doing the best he could. As they shared stories, the storm outside finally began to quiet. The wind had died down, and the snowflakes were falling more gently now. The town was beginning to look peaceful again, like a winter wonderland, though the roads were still covered and would take time to clear. Emily glanced out the window, seeing the moon rise slowly above the snow-covered streets. It was a beautiful sight, one that she would remember for a long time. "Do you think we'll be able to drive in the morning?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. "We'll have to see how the roads look when we get up," Marcus said. "But I know some people around here who can help with getting your car out. It won't be easy, but we'll manage. I wouldn't worry too much about it now." Emily nodded, feeling a sense of relief wash over her. It had been a stressful night, but now she felt like things were going to be okay. She wasn't sure how long it would take to get her car back on the road, but she knew that with Marcus's help, she wouldn't be facing it alone. As the night deepened, the two of them made plans for the morning. They agreed to rest for a bit and head out as soon as the snow had cleared enough to travel. Emily was still tired, her body drained from the cold and the stress of the evening, but she felt safer now, more at ease than she had in hours. "I'm going to grab a quick nap," Marcus said after a while, standing up from the table. "We'll head out first thing in the morning." "Don't worry, we'll figure this out." Emily smiled faintly and stood up as well. "Thank you, Marcus. I'll sleep better knowing I'm not alone in this." Marcus nodded and walked toward the small back corner of the diner, where a cot had been set up for late-night workers. Emily turned toward the window again, her thoughts drifting as she watched the snow continue to fall outside. It had been a long night, but somehow it had also been a turning point for her. She didn't know what the future held, but she felt a spark of hope that things might be better than she had feared. The storm outside had been fierce, but in the warmth of the diner and the kindness of a stranger, Emily had found something she hadn't realized she'd been missing. A reminder that there were still good people in the world, people who would help without asking for anything. The following morning, the town was wrapped in a blanket of fresh snow, and the storm that had raged through the night had finally subsided. The snowflakes, once harsh and relentless, were now delicate and soft, glistening in the early morning light. Marcus had woken up early, as he always did, but today there was something different about the quiet of the town. The roads were still covered, and there was a chill in the air, but everything seemed peaceful again. He stretched his arms as he stood up from the cot in the diner's back room, the soft creak of the old floorboards breaking the silence. He had barely slept. His mind had been racing, thinking about how he could help Emily and get her back on the road. The storm had been bad, and he knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to do what he could. Walking to the front of the diner, he glanced outside. The street was empty except for the occasional car struggling to make its way through the snow. The diner's window was fogged up, but Marcus could still see the beauty of the white world outside, even if it had come at such a cost. The world seemed still, but there was a sense of hope in the air. The worst was over. Emily was already awake when Marcus returned to the main diner area. She sat in one of the booths near the window, looking out at the snowy streets. Her coat was draped over her lap, and she looked a bit tired but more relaxed than she had been the night before. She had slept better, though her face still held traces of worry, and her eyes seemed distant as she stared out into the cold morning. "Morning," Marcus said, walking over to the table. Emily turned to him and gave him a small smile. "Morning." "I didn't want to wake you, but I couldn't sleep well either. Just thinking," Marcus nodded, understanding. "It's been a long couple of days, but the storm's over now, so we can get you to your car and see about getting it out." Emily looked relieved. "Thank you, Marcus. I don't know what I would have done without you last night. It felt like the storm would never stop." Marcus smiled back at her. "I'm glad I could help. It's not often you find someone willing to help a stranger, but that's just what you do when you see someone in need, right?" Emily's eyes softened as she gazed at him. "I didn't expect it, but now I'm not so worried about things. I'm grateful." After a quick breakfast, Marcus and Emily bundled up and stepped outside. The morning air was cold, but not as biting as it had been the night before. The sun, barely visible through the thick layer of clouds, was just beginning to rise higher in the sky, casting a muted glow on the snowy streets. The town looked peaceful in the early morning light. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the cool air fill his lungs. There was something calming about the silence, broken only by the sound of their footsteps crunching in the snow. It was as if the world had been reset, everything fresh and untouched. Emily pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders, clearly feeling the cold, but she seemed more at ease now. "Where do we start?" she asked. Marcus pointed down the street. "We'll head to where I saw your car last night. We'll need to figure out how to get it out of the snow, and we might have to call in some help. But don't worry, we'll manage." Emily nodded, following him. "I appreciate it, I really do. I've been through a lot lately, and I didn't expect to meet someone like you. Most people wouldn't offer help like you did." Marcus didn't say anything right away. He knew what it was like to feel alone, to face challenges without anyone to turn to. But he also knew that in times like these, when you help someone, it can change everything for both people involved. "I just want to make sure you're okay," he said, looking back at her with a calm expression. They walked together down the street, the snow crunching beneath their boots. Marcus was thinking about the best way to tackle the situation. It wasn't going to be easy. The snow had piled up overnight, and there was still a lot of work to be done to clear the roads. But Marcus had lived in this town long enough to know who could help in a pinch. After a few blocks, they arrived at the spot where Emily's car was stuck. The vehicle was buried under several feet of snow, its tires half submerged in the ice. It looked like the storm had dropped more snow on it than Marcus had originally realized. The sight of it confirmed that getting the car out wouldn't be as simple as they had hoped. "Well, here it is," Marcus said, surveying the situation. "It's stuck pretty good." Emily sighed and approached the car, running her fingers along the hood, which was now covered in a thick layer of ice. "I didn't expect it to be this bad. I thought maybe I could dig it out, but I'm not sure where to start." Marcus stood by her side, thinking. "I know a couple of guys who live around here. They've got trucks and plows. I can call them, see if they're free to help us out." Emily looked at him gratefully. "That would be great. I don't even know where to begin." Marcus took out his phone and dialed a number. After a few rings, someone answered on the other end. "Hey, Jake, it's Marcus. I've got a car stuck out on Pine Street, and we need a hand getting it out of the snow. You think you could come by with the plow?" There was a brief pause on the other end before Jake's voice came through, gruff but friendly. "Yeah, I can make it over. Be there in 15 minutes." Marcus hung up the phone and turned to Emily. Jake's on his way. He's got the right equipment. We should be able to get this sorted out quickly. Emily smiled, a sense of relief washing over her. Thank you, Marcus. I feel like I'm in good hands now. As they waited for Jake to arrive, Marcus and Emily stood together in the snow, talking about anything and everything. Emily shared more about her life, how she had been working hard in the city, trying to build a future for herself, but how she had hit some rough patches along the way. She talked about her family, the ones she hadn't seen in a while, and how she missed them, though she hadn't been able to visit in over a year. Marcus listened patiently, understanding more about her struggles. He didn't ask for all the details, but he could tell that Emily was strong, even when things weren't going her way. She had a way of carrying herself that showed resilience, even in the face of adversity. Before long, the sound of a truck engine could be heard in the distance, and Marcus smiled as he saw Jake pull up with his plow truck. "Well, here we are," Marcus said, giving Emily a reassuring look. Jake hopped out of the truck and walked over to them, a broad smile on his face. "Morning, Marcus. Looks like we've got a bit of a mess here." "Yeah," Marcus replied, "but we'll get it taken care of." With Jake's help, they got to work clearing the snow from around Emily's car. It was hard work, but with the plow and the teamwork, they managed to get the car freed from the snow. Once the tires were free, it was just a matter of getting it out onto the cleared road. Emily sat in the driver's seat, and with a little help from Marcus and Jake, she managed to get her car running again. When the car was finally free, Emily stepped out, looking at Marcus and Jake with deep gratitude. "Thank you both so much." "I can't believe you went through all this trouble for me." Jake grinned and slapped Marcus on the back. "Don't mention it. It's what we do around here. Glad to help." Marcus smiled at Emily. "It wasn't a problem at all. I'm just glad we got you out of that snow. Now you can get back on your way." Emily nodded, her eyes a little misty. "I'll never forget this. You've both been so kind, and I'm really thankful." With that, she gave Marcus a firm handshake, then got into her car, ready to continue her journey. As she drove away, Marcus stood in the snow, watching the car disappear down the road. He felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing he had helped someone in need, and as the sun finally broke through the clouds, he knew it was a day that would stay with both of them for a long time. The days that followed were peaceful, a calm after the storm. The town had returned to its usual rhythm, with the snow slowly melting away under the strengthening rays of the sun. For Marcus, life had resumed its usual pace, but something about the events of the past few days kept lingering in his mind. Helping Emily had felt like the right thing to do, but it had also been more than just a kind gesture. It had been a reminder of how small acts of compassion could ripple through a person's life, leaving an impact that lasted far beyond the moment. After Emily had driven off, Marcus went back to his usual routine, working hard at the factory during the day and spending time with his family in the evenings. He tried not to think too much about the strange encounter, but it was difficult. There was something about Emily that had stayed with him, her quiet strength, the way she had been open with him despite the hardships she had faced, and the way she had trusted him when she had no reason to. A few days later, Marcus was in his kitchen, sipping a cup of coffee as he got ready to leave for work. The morning air was crisp, and the world outside seemed calm, the chaos of the storm now a distant memory. His phone rang, and when he saw the caller ID, he smiled. "Marcus, it's Emily." Her voice came through warmly on the other end. "Hey, Emily, how are you?" Marcus asked, glad to hear from her. "I'm doing well, thanks to you," she replied. "I just wanted to check in and thank you again for everything. I made it to my family's place without any more trouble, and I finally had a chance to relax." "I'm glad to hear that. It was my pleasure. I'm just happy you made it through that storm safely," Marcus said. Emily paused for a moment, her voice more serious when she spoke again. "You know, Marcus, I've been thinking. I've been in a tough spot for a while now, and I feel like I'm finally starting to see a way out. And a lot of that is because of the kindness you showed me." Marcus shook his head, though he knew she couldn't see the gesture. "I just did what anyone would do. You were stuck out there, and I couldn't just leave you, but I'm glad I was able to help." "I don't think most people would have done the same," Emily said. "But you did, and it's made me realize something important." Marcus was curious now, listening closely. "What's that?" Emily took a deep breath. "It's about how we all go through tough times, but sometimes we just need a little help from others to push through it. I've been feeling stuck for so long, not sure how to move forward." But your act of kindness made me realize that I can do more than just survive. I can actually build something better for myself." Marcus smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "I'm glad I could help you see that. You've got a lot of strength, Emily. It's all about taking small steps toward what you want, even when things seem hard." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When Emily spoke again, her tone was different, as though she had made up her mind about something. "I've been offered a job, Marcus. It's not in the city, but it's a good opportunity, and I think it could really change things for me. It's in a small town a few hours away. I'm nervous, but I think it's time to take that step." Marcus felt a surge of pride for her. "That's amazing, Emily. I'm proud of you." "It sounds like you're making a brave move." Emily's voice softened. "I wanted to tell you because I feel like you were the first person to really listen to me when I needed someone. You helped me when I was at my lowest, and because of that, I feel like I'm ready to start fresh." Marcus felt the weight of her words. He hadn't realized how much his simple act of helping her had affected her, but hearing her now, he knew it had made a difference. It wasn't just about getting her out of a snowstorm, it was about giving her the confidence to move forward with her life. "I'm really happy for you, Emily," he said, his voice steady. "Whatever happens, I know you'll make it work. You've got the strength to get through anything." There was a quiet moment between them, both of them taking in the meaning of their conversation. Finally, Emily spoke again, her voice warm with gratitude. "Thank you, Marcus. You've been a big part of helping me believe in myself again. I won't forget it." Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment in her words, a realization that sometimes the smallest of actions could lead to the biggest changes. "Take care of yourself, Emily," he said, "and if you ever need anything, you know where to find me." "I will." "And thank you again," she replied, the sincerity in her voice making Marcus feel like he had done something truly meaningful. The call ended, and Marcus stood in his kitchen for a moment, his thoughts lingering on their conversation. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that he had helped Emily in a way that had changed her path. It wasn't about grand gestures or big accomplishments. It was about showing kindness when it was needed most. And in that small act, he had made a difference in someone's life. That evening, as Marcus sat with his family around the dinner table, he couldn't help but reflect on the importance of the relationships he had, both big and small. He looked at his wife and kids, feeling grateful for the love and support they gave him every day. He realized that kindness wasn't just something that existed in isolated moments. It was something that could be a part of every day, in the way you treated others and the way you let them into your life. Over the next few weeks, Emily's life began to take shape in new ways. She settled into her new job, and though the transition was difficult, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had come to realize that the journey was about more than just the destination. It was about the steps she took along the way and the people who helped her, even in small ways. For Marcus, the experience had also changed him. It had made him appreciate the power of kindness and how it could be a bridge to something greater. He had always believed in helping others, but now he saw how a single act could send ripples through a person's life, changing things in ways that couldn't be predicted. As the months passed, Marcus and Emily kept in touch occasionally, exchanging updates on their lives. It was clear that they had both grown in their own ways, and though their paths had diverged, there was a quiet understanding between them that their brief encounter had meant something important. In the end, it wasn't just about the snowstorm or the car stuck in the snow. It was about the connections they had made, the kindness they had shared, and the way they had both taken steps toward better futures. And for Marcus, that was a reminder that even the smallest acts of compassion could make the world a better place, one person at a time. The months that followed felt like a fresh chapter for both Marcus and Emily. For Marcus, life in the small town seemed to settle into a predictable rhythm once again. He continued his work at the factory, came home to his family every evening, and did his best to provide for them just as he always had. But something had changed within him. He felt a deeper sense of satisfaction in the small moments, in the times when he helped others or took the time to show kindness. His life felt more complete, more meaningful, and it was all because of that one decision to help a stranger on a cold, snowy night. As the weeks went on, Emily's journey unfolded in ways she hadn't expected. The job she had taken in the small town was challenging, but it also gave her a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in a long time. She had been through many struggles in her life, but now, as she looked at the fresh start she was building for herself, She felt like she was finally on the right path. One crisp morning, several months after their first meeting, Marcus received an unexpected message. It was from Emily, and it made his heart skip a beat. "Marcus, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to reach out because I've been thinking about our conversation, about everything you helped me with. I've made a decision, and I wanted you to be the first to know." Marcus smiled as he read the message. It had been a while since they had talked, but he remembered the gratitude in her voice and the way she had spoken about her journey. He was happy to hear from her and eager to find out what she had to say. A few moments later, Emily called him. Her voice sounded clear and confident, and there was a noticeable warmth in her tone. "Hey, Marcus, it's Emily. I just wanted to let you know that I've made the move. I've decided to stay in this town. I found a place to live, and I'm really starting to feel at home here. The job has been going well, and I'm even thinking about taking on more responsibilities. I feel like I'm finally in control of my life, and it's all thanks to the encouragement you gave me." Marcus's heart swelled with pride as he listened to Emily. "That's amazing, Emily. I'm so happy for you. It's great to hear that things are going well. You deserve this." Emily laughed softly. "I don't think I would have made it this far if it weren't for you. You helped me see that I could take charge of my own future. Before we met, I felt lost, like I didn't have any direction. But now I feel like I'm finally on the right track." Marcus didn't know what to say. He had never expected his small act of kindness to have such a profound effect on someone's life. He had simply helped her through a tough night, but now, hearing her speak with such confidence, he realized just how much of an impact he had made. "It's all you, Emily. You had the strength inside you all along. You just needed a little push to see it." The conversation went on for a little while longer, and they shared updates about their lives. Emily had found a new group of friends in the town, people who welcomed her and supported her as she built her new life. She had even started volunteering at a local shelter, helping others who were in situations similar to the one she had been in not too long ago. As the call came to an end, Emily's voice softened again. "I just wanted to thank you, Marcus. You've been so important in my journey, and I know I can never repay you for what you did, but I promise I'm paying it forward." Marcus smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. "You don't have to repay me, Emily. Just keep doing what you're doing. Helping others, being kind, it's all part of the circle." After their call, Marcus couldn't help but reflect on everything that had happened. He thought back to the night he had found Emily in the storm, how he had offered his help without thinking twice. He hadn't known it then, but that simple act of kindness had set into motion a chain of events that would change both of their lives forever. For Marcus, it was a reminder that small moments mattered, that the decisions we make, even the ones that seem insignificant at the time, can have ripple effects that reach far beyond what we can see. He had always believed in doing good, but now he felt even more certain that the world needed more people willing to offer help, no matter how big or small the gesture. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. Marcus's life remained grounded in his family and work, but he never forgot about Emily and the journey she had undertaken. He was proud of her, and he felt a quiet sense of joy knowing that she was thriving. Then one day he received another message from Emily, though this one was different. She had a proposal for him. "I'm thinking of starting a community project here in town," the message read. "Something that can help people in need, just like I was helped when I first arrived. It'll be a place where people can come for support, resources, and a sense of belonging. I want you to be a part of it, Marcus. You inspired me to believe in myself, and now I want to inspire others. Will you help me make this dream a reality?" Marcus sat in his living room, reading the message over and over again. He was moved by Emily's words, by her vision of helping others in the way she had once been helped. It was a beautiful idea, and it felt like a natural next step in her journey. Without hesitation, he picked up the phone and called her. "Emily, I'm all in. Let's do this." The two of them began planning the project together, laying the groundwork for a community center that would provide support to those who needed it most. They reached out to local organizations, gathered volunteers, and worked tirelessly to bring the idea to life. Over time, the project grew, and it became a place of hope and refuge for people in the town. It was a place where kindness, understanding, and empathy were at the heart of everything. The center flourished, and with it, the bond between Marcus and Emily deepened. They had both changed so much over the past year, and now they were working side by side to create something that would benefit others for years to come. One day, as Marcus stood in front of the community center, watching people come and go, he reflected on how far he had come. He had never imagined that a simple act of kindness could lead to so much, but here he was, helping to build something that would make a difference in his town, in the lives of countless people. Emily, too, had found her place. She had not only found a new home in the town, but she had also found a way to give back, to help others in the same way she had been helped. Her journey, though full of challenges, had been one of self-discovery, growth, and resilience. And she knew, as she looked around the center that had come to life because of their shared efforts, that she had found something truly meaningful. In the end, Marcus realized that the world wasn't always as bleak as it seemed. That even in the darkest moments, there was always a way to make a difference. Whether it was through small acts of kindness or larger efforts to create change, each of us had the power to impact the lives of others. And as the doors to the community center opened wide, welcoming new faces every day, Marcus and Emily knew that their story was just one of many that would unfold because of the kindness they had shared.